If you've been agonizing about which backpacking stove is right for you from among the myriad of existing makes and models, you've come to the right place. Right now on Joshua Johnson Outdoors, I share with you, wonderful, intelligent, and no doubt good-looking audience members, what is in my experience the best, or at least one of the best, backpacking stoves on the market. First off, disclaimer. As I said, this video is based on my own experience in the outdoors, and thus, this is based on my own opinion. Feel free to agree or disagree in the comments. As you may or may not know, the backpacking and general outdoors stove market is pretty saturated with different stove options, and for this reason, it can be very difficult to figure out which stove best fits our needs. Not only are there a lot of different options to choose from, there are also many different types of stoves as well. For example, white gas or white spirit stoves, which use different varieties of highly refined petroleum, alcohol burners, which use different blends of ethanol or methanol, and solid fuel stoves, which, as the name states, use different types of solid fuels such as wood, trioxane, hexamine, etc. For the purpose of this video, I'm limiting my scope to canister stoves as they're arguably the most common and convenient to use based on the conditions that your average backpacker tends to encounter. I'll be discussing the different types of stoves that I just mentioned in a separate video, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. Before I get into the details of my selected best backpacking stove, there are a few really good runners-up that are worth mentioning first. Runner-up number 1, Jetboil. Jetboil stoves are fast, efficient, and extremely convenient. The increased surface area provided by their heat exchangers, the little metal fins located on the bottom of the pot, allow for improved thermal conductivity, and thus your food heats up faster. These heat exchangers are so effective that they have actually become pretty standard on a lot of different stove systems, so they're no longer unique to just Jetboil. Whatever canister stove you decide to buy, I absolutely recommend a heat exchanger pot, as the difference in performance is enormous. Now, one thing I don't care for about Jetboil stoves is that most of the pots they offer can only fit a 100-gram fuel canister inside. On harder trips, such as long-distance backpacking, or even more advanced activities such as mountaineering or even multi-day pack rafting journeys, the space and weight efficiency becomes very important. As an example, taking a single larger 230-gram fuel canister, which preferably will fit inside your pot, is more efficient than taking two smaller 100-gram fuel canisters. There are actually other stove systems available that have the benefits of a Jetboil and can also accommodate larger canisters. Just something to consider. Runner-up number 2, the MSR Pocket Rocket. This is one of the most common canister stoves available. I seem to see people using it almost everywhere I go in the outdoors and across many different countries. MSR makes some of the most trusted stoves in the world and invests a huge amount in R&D into their products. The Pocket Rocket, through its many years of iterations, has the advantages of being affordable, simple, and reliable. End of story. The main thing I don't like about it, though, is that in a stiff wind, its performance is, in all honesty, terrible. For this reason, even in a mild wind, the stove requires an additional windscreen. Coupled with the windscreen, the stove performs just fine. But this scenario is a double-edged sword in that using a windscreen with a canister stove can be dangerous and is technically not something you're supposed to do. The reason for this is that much of the radiant heat energy that's reflected by the windscreen ends up being absorbed by the canister itself, and this causes the canister to heat up. A little heating can be good, particularly in cooler conditions, as this helps certain fuel species in your blended fuel canister to vaporize more readily. However, too much heating can cause the canister to overheat, and in a worst case scenario, lead to catastrophic failure of your pressure vessel. In simple terms, it can blow up like a grenade. Don't get me wrong, for an observant and experienced outdoors person that's aware of this hazard, using a windscreen on a canister stove is just fine, but for the uninitiated or inattentive, it can be a recipe for a really bad day. Again, just something to consider. And now, my choice for the best backpacking canister stove on the market is the Snow Peak Gigapower. Admittedly, in my 20-something years of wilderness endeavors, the Snow Peak Gigapower hasn't been that visible. In fact, I've only seen a small handful of people using this stove in person. But I don't know why, because it's awesome. Here's a few reasons why. Reason number 1. It's reliable. First introduced to the US market in 1998, the Snow Peak Gigapower is the most reliable backpacking canister stove I've seen. I've had mine for 15 years and it's been operating flawlessly and near maintenance free the entire time I've owned it through hundreds and hundreds of trips. I originally purchased the Gigapower secondhand on eBay for $20 and the owner before me had already used it extensively. Its compact and I would even say elegant design, inspired by the Japanese aesthetics for beauty and functionality as per their website, allow it to remain a true competitor in the modern stove marketplace. Reason number 2. It has an absolutely superior windscreen. The Snowpeak Gigapower has one of the best and most functional windscreens out of any canister stove I've seen. It seats over the burner head and 4 support legs and packs away nicely with your pot. Many canister stoves don't have any sort of windscreen, which is a bit silly considering the fact that canister stove performance tends to drop off enormously with even a slight breeze. This windscreen can even be paired with certain models of heat exchanger pots, resulting in a stove system that has the flame stability and efficiency of a Jetboil flash or MSR windburner, but with higher pot volume and lower stove system weight. Reason number 3. Service. Snowpeak has some of the best customer and product service of any company I've dealt with. Case in point, a few years ago, I needed a spare gasket and O-ring for my Snowpeak Gigapower after I accidentally damaged mine when I used a fuel canister that had a damaged valve. I contacted Snowpeak explaining my situation, and despite the fact that the stove is almost 20 years old, they sent me several gaskets and O-rings free of charge. Thanks, Snowpeak. For the reasons I've just mentioned, I think Snowpeak are a top shelf company, and their Gigapower stove is a top shelf piece of gear worthy of consideration when you're shopping around for your next backpacking stove. I hope you found this video helpful. Feel free to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content, and I hope you have a great day. Cheers.